Although the trucks in that race may look like many you'll find on the road, they're not, they're super trucks, and the drivers are certainly not behaving as if they were on the M1. Thanks, Alan. Of course, good fuel economy is something that's miles from their mind. After all, in a race, there is no need to save it. Not only would commercial drivers be crazy to act like those racers, they'd quickly go out of business too. It's as certain as almost anything in life that fuel prices will continue to rise, and as they do, the sensible driver will strive to drive in a fuel-efficient manner. And that doesn't necessarily mean taking any longer to get to your destination. One man who spent his working life studying the subject is truck driver, engineer and academic Michael Coyle. Michael, why is fuel efficiency so important?
By improving the fuel efficiency of the vehicles, we can reduce the environmental impact, reduce one of the major costs, therefore improving the profitability of our operation. Basically what it comes down to is this.
In broad terms, a 10% improvement in a transport company's fuel consumption can more than double its profit.
The British transport industry has never been under such competitive pressure, which means that optimising the efficiency of the supply chain is crucial.
When you run a road haulage business, your main source of income is the vehicle. And a significant part of the cost of running a vehicle is fuel. Now, clearly, fuel is very expensive, and everything that can be done to economise on fuel consumption will make a major contribution to profit.
When you consider that fuel can account for up to 30% of a transport company's costs, then this demonstrates the potential benefits that can be gained from fuel-efficient driving.
The first responsibility lies with the operator. They have to buy the right vehicle for the job, because that can have a significant impact on fuel consumption. They have to make sure that they give the driver the right instructions, so he knows where he's going, he knows what he's doing. And of course the driver himself has a key part to play, because he can have a very significant impact on the way the vehicle is operated and eventually the amount of fuel that's used.
Steve, why is fuel efficiency so crucial?
With a spend per annum of £9.6 million, a 1% saving equates to £96,000, and all them costs are in the supply chain, which obviously affects our sale price in a competitive retail market.
So what are you as a company doing to save fuel?
We're doing various things. We've got a continuous development programme for our drivers in terms of training on economic driving, and also technology that's coming around within the industry now, such as if you see this trailer, this floor actually moves up, which allows us to load the top deck, and then we can load the bottom deck, which is an example, if we had 3 of these types of trailers, it is the equivalent of 5 standard trailers on the road.
So that gives you a saving of
what? 40%.
A 40%
It's a reduction of 40% usage of another vehicle.
If there was one specific thing you'd want to get across to your drivers about fuel economy, what would it be?
With the investment and the training that we've given the drivers, we would hope and expect that they would carry that out in their everyday working life and be safe and economical in the way they drive our vehicles.
So essentially, drivers you've been trained?
Exactly.
We have to bear in mind that these issues affect every operator, whether they run one vehicle or whether they run 1,000. The proportion of cost represented by fuel is likely to be the same whatever the size of the fleet, so everybody's got something to learn from this exercise.
90% of UK operators have 10 trucks or less. PS Transport is a typical example.
We have 7 vehicles, split between temperature-controlled transports and general merchandise, which is spread across flat deck transport and curtain-sided transport, employ 13 full-time staff.
What made you decide to improve the fuel efficiency side of your operation?
Fuel costs constitute around about 30% of our total costs for the operation, and we realised we need to remain an efficient operation. We started recording information, working alongside Huddersfield University to provide them with assistance for their research. We've spent about 2 years doing that. We're now in a good position to implement a thorough package, which is started with a fuel bonus programme. Any savings we now make, we share with the drivers once they achieve a certain threshold on their mile per gallon performance. We've put one driver through a fuel efficiency training course, which on the day he achieved an 18.7% improvement. And on top of that, we now look at things like vehicle spec and aerodynamics. And we're going to do our best to make sure that we make all the savings we can.
Whether you drive a car, van, bus or truck, to perform fuel efficiently, it'll need to be looked after. Maintenance. Now, it doesn't matter whether you're an owner driver or a big operator. Poor maintenance will be costly. Singh, why is good maintenance so important when it comes to fuel efficiency?
Maintenance is a key area because we've got to get the best fuel consumption out of any commercial vehicle because of the fuel costs nowadays.
So which areas should we look at?
4 key areas are the fuel system, the air intake, the brakes and the tyres.
So where should we start?
Shall I take you around?
Yeah, please do.
Tyres obviously play a key factor to fuel consumption on any commercial vehicle or a trailer. The first thing we obviously need to check is the tyre pressures are maintained. Make sure that there's no signs of any feathering. As I'm spinning the tyre, you'll see there's signs of feathering.
What is feathering? These marks here?
Yeah, the outer edge is feathering there. You can see that. That indicates that the vehicle is out of track or the vehicle alignment is out.
And what are the consequences of that?
It's not running in a true line.
And hence it uses more fuel?
Exactly. As we come to the air intake side of the vehicle, we're looking for signs of any leakage around these pipes here. The air filter plays a very, very key role in your fuel consumption. If you've got a clogged air filter, you've got a restriction of the air getting into the engine, and the driver will notice black smoke coming out of the exhaust, and obviously he'll have signs of lack of power as well. The next thing here is the exhaust brake.
Right.
If the exhaust brake is not functioning correctly, i.e. it's sticking, that will cause the engine gases not to escape through the exhaust system. Hence, the engine won't be performing properly. It will give you an indication of lack of power.
And from a driver's point of view, it's more fuel efficient to use the exhaust brake than the normal wheel brakes.
That's right, yeah. Fuel tank, obviously, visual checks to be done on the fuel tank. Make sure the seams are not leaking. There's no any signs of any spillage through the seams. Ensure that the pipes and everything are sealed up correctly. Ensure the breather is nice and free. The seam around the necks as well, that they've got to play a very important role. The fuel cap, make sure that secures on properly and the seals in the fuel cap are there.
The fuel tank should only ever be filled to the base of the neck, never to the brim. So we've talked about fuel tanks. Singh, what about fuel filters?
They get clogged up like air filters. You've got to change them at regular intervals because you pick up dirt from into the derv, water gets in there. So they are a good trap protecting your fuel injection equipment.
So the cleaner the fuel, the more efficient the fuel consumption.
That's right. So you don't have any lack of power problems. The engine flow of the fuel getting into the injection pump, there's no restriction in there.
Now what about brakes?
The brakes should be checked on a regular interval. Brakes which are not releasing correctly, i.e. hanging on, will have an effect on a fuel consumption, i.e. the engine will have to do more work to get the truck rolling. Emissions will have to be checked to ensure that the right supply of fuel and air is getting into the engine.
And you should also look at aerodynamics.
That's right. See the air deflectors on the top of the roof and on the side. They're not there just for show. They play a key part on the road. Make sure the trailers are coupled correctly, so they've got a close coupled unit and trailer. There's not a big gap between the unit and the trailer. Make sure the trailer brakes are checked. They don't hang on. That you've got a free flow of the trailer, because if you've got a hanging on brakes on the trailer, the engine will have to do hard work to pull that trailer along. Tires, make sure there is no misalignment the unit. You'll have to do a lot of work if the axle is out of line.
Much of this is the responsibility of the workshop, but drivers are the first line of defence when it comes to reporting defects.
It's vital to take a serious view of maintenance, and it's not just in terms of fuel efficiency. It's a professional industry and we expect the highest of standards. We've got to have safe vehicles. Vehicles that are not run safely, and this is the minority of the industry, I must add, will result in prohibitions being imposed on those vehicles. That's particularly serious for the operator, who may be put out of business. It's even more serious for the drivers, because they will lose their livelihood because they lose their jobs.
Right, Michael, show us how we can save some of that money.
Well, one of the first things that we can do is we bend down and check the tyre, make sure that it's running true, not tracking in or tracking out, which will give us more tyre scrub, and that's bad for fuel consumption. Right. Next thing is we can do a quick check, a visual check of the fuel tank, because gauges have been known to tell lies.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, on the back here, we've got twin tyres. If we look down between them, we can see whether or not there's a gap there.
Okay.
If they're touching, if they're kissing as we call it, it could be a problem, there could be low pressure. If we've got low pressure, for roughly on these sort of tyres, every 10 pounds that we lose in air pressure, we lose 1% in fuel consumption.
Right, so it's a big difference.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's next?
Well, around the back, we've got an Arctic unit and trailer. They've got some really good aerodynamic equipment we should look at.
Let's go and have a look.
The difference between a unit and trailer with really good aerodynamics and a basic unit and trailer can be as much as 15% in terms of fuel consumption. Now on the back here, we've got a really good example of good aerodynamics. It finishes, it curls around, it curves, so when the air leaves, we don't get any low pressure, and it helps to propel the trailer forward. So walking down, we can see the curtain here. It's nice and smooth, no rips and tears.
What sort of difference will a tear make?
Depends on the size of the tear, but the tear will affect the aerodynamics, which once again will affect the fuel efficiency of it.
Okay.
We've got smooth panels down the side of the trailer, and we've got smooth panels along the side of the unit.
Right.
And then here, at the front of the trailer, we've got the small cab gap between the back of the cab and the front of the trailer, which once again can affect fuel efficiency through the aerodynamics. Be aware of the weight imposed on your axles. Now, surprisingly, we can get 80% of the overall saving from just 3 components. We've got the collars on the side, the air dam at the front on the bottom, and then the biggest saving of all comes from the air deflector on the top of the cab. Ideally, the top of the cab deflector should match the height of the top of the trailer.
Michael, anything else we should be thinking about?
Yes, there's a few things. We can consider using night heaters inside the cab to keep the cab warm, so we're not demisting with the engine in the morning, which is wasting fuel. We can make sure that we specify the right vehicle for the job in terms of the right engine, the right gearbox, and the right final drive ratio. And a lot of modern vehicles have onboard computers now, which will give you feedback instantly to the driver, so the driver can try out the new techniques and basically educate themselves to become more fuel efficient.
Right.
And then finally, if we park the vehicle up correctly when we finish the shift, we can drive straight off in the morning rather than manoeuvring about reversing with a cold engine, which is bad for fuel, and also there's a safety issue there.
Operators and drivers need to work together as a team effort. First of all, the drivers are supposed to check their vehicles every day to make sure they're in tip-top condition. The operators must make sure that the drivers are trained how to do that.
Driving correctly will reduce stress and fatigue, as well as saving costs and cutting down on harmful emissions, which means it's time for me to get some training. Like all good drivers, we've done our walk-round checks. In the cab, we've prepared for defensive driving. We've completed the cockpit checks and adjusted to a comfortable driving position with all the controls in easy reach. And most importantly, we've adjusted the mirrors for maximum visibility. The first thing to remember is to pull away in the correct gear.
biggest influence on fuel consumption relating to the vehicle operating is the driver. It's important that the driver knows how to operate the vehicle at the most efficient level to suit the driving conditions. This is a nice long piece of A road, 40 mile an hour road speed for this type of vehicle on this class of road. We'll build the road speed up to 40 mile an hour. I've selected 6 low, 40 mile an hour, 1100 RPMs, resume cruise control, and that's optimising fuel efficiency. Look, we're on a level piece of road, hardly using any fuel whatsoever. Cruise control should be used when it's safe and practical to do so, and it's determined by the type of road, the road conditions, the weather conditions, and about you practicing forward observation and planning, anticipating. For example, I'm in cruise control, but I see roadworks ahead, so I'm actually coming off cruise control, checking the mirrors, I've got vehicles behind, the busy road, vehicles approaching. I'm giving early indication to the vehicles behind it to let them know I'm going to change direction, keeping my road speed constant. After the red van, it's clear for me to pull out and continue making progress with the vehicle moving. Missing out one or more gears is normally referred to as skip changing or block changing.